welcome back. To continue on with our little series here, I'm going to discuss shadow signs for a minute and kind of give a little demonstration of how they work and where to find them and how to line yourself up in order to view these signs and how large these signs are, something that nobody else seems to have picked up on in all these centuries. You might have noticed to the computer screen to the right of me here are some, this is a landscape. This is a landscape. This is actually a photograph I took last year of the Dragoon Mountain Range. I went down there specifically to photograph the mountain range and see what kind of shadow signs the range contains. Now, most of these shadow signs, probably a good portion of the reason that they haven't been picked up on over the centuries is they're all in abstract. They're all representations of things. They're not per se individual items that you can look at readily and see outstanding. You have to really look for these things. Now, it's taken me years to be able to see these things and train myself in order to see these things. But basically, it's kind of funny because one of the methods that they used a lot, of course, would be the telescope. The telescope requires basically a two-dimensional plane of viewing. You can only see with one eye. You can only see practically what the same thing a camera sees. You can only see that two-dimensional plane. You can't see three dimensions. So on this plane of vision that they used one eye with, basically, I believe they used for the main signs. They used a patch on one eye. You put a patch over one eye. You keep both eyes open. You're only seeing in a singular plane, and that way they could view them as they moved along. Basically, a pirate might explain why pirates wore a patch. They had to find the various shadow symbols along the shore as they were navigating through the ocean that were left there by their predecessors or left there in secret. That would only appear at certain times of the day or certain times of the year, and they could interpret these symbols as they seen them with one eye covered. So to the right of me on the computer screen, you might notice there's a large shadow arrow pointer with a shaft coming off of it, a small shaft, almost an arrowhead type looking pointer. Over here you have basically a profile of what looks like a giraffe. This is one of the horse symbols they used. Right here you have a small heart with a tail coming off of one side and of course a tail coming off the point that morphs into a pointer. This is called metamorphosis. Metamorphosis was one of the greatest things that they utilized. It didn't require that there be a lot of time spent on singling out a particular sign. They could say a lot within one sign because they stacked signs on top of each other, and this is one of the reasons that a lot of this stuff is so abstract. It's very hard to read, and they could say a whole sentence of things within a few signs here. Now basically this is an animal trail leading up the side of the Dragoon Mountain Range. I want to zoom out here a little bit on this photograph. Make sure the camera picks it up pretty good. Take it out a little ways. Take it out a little more. 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 Now I'll try to get this and zoom back in and get them both in the picture here. Okay. I hope this can be seen on that video. But basically you've got the arrow here, the heart here, the horse back here out of the picture. The arrow is pointing that this is the animal trail up to the campsite. Right here is a triangular pointer the arrow points to, the shadow arrow. Shadow usually points to rock, or rock leads to shadow. But basically this is the top of an obelisk, and it's a secondary pointer just as a verification. The top of this rock outcrop makes the shape of a heart with a crack down the middle. There is a small crescent moon here, a crescent moon here above my finger, which indicates a campsite, probably an overnight campsite. And as you continue on, you can see some various heart shapes made out of rock and some various other shadows, including the shadow of a profile man or person. These were the walkers, or the standers, whatever you want to call them, but these were the walkers and standers. You'll find those in all of the shadow signs on the landscape where they created this. Now we're going to get out of this, we're going to go back, and we're going to look at some other shadow signs. See, this is the Catalina mountain range. Now these are giant signs, and they're not fully formed signs yet because it was at the wrong time of the year when these signs were basically filmed. But just as an example of the abstracting they do, I'm going to show you. This one's kind of hard to see. I don't even know if the video is going to pick it up. It's pretty hard to see. I'm going to check it out and see. I can see the stuff at the bottom, but I can't see the stuff at the top, so maybe we should go on with this series and see what else we got here that we can show. Well, this is a little bit better. I'll give a little example of this.
Dog! Hey dog! Hey dog! It's not the dog room!
This is a large triangle pointer with a small cross at the top of it, pointing to a smaller pointer, a triangle pointer up the side of the mountain. This is leading to a major stronghold campsite, or a major stronghold city, that they basically use to protect themselves from the indigenous population that may be hostile to them. And this is just the method that they used for their mining processes. This is where they would go during the off season and wait for the proper season so that they can move in and do their mining. Now, a lot of times with shadows, they may not have to have a distinct shape. They could just be designated a certain trail or path. These shadows that go up the side of this cliff, or of this sheer rock mountain, designate a royal trail, or a walker's trail that goes up. It's a faster trail to get up to that particular point. If you're taking a survey reading, or if you're looking to find a distant marker or sign, it might lead you to where the mining areas could be. They also use these vantage points for surveying. High rocks were their favorite spots. You can see there's various foliage and trees in this part of the range behind it. A lot of game might be there that would be one of the areas that they might hunt and look for food if they need to. Here again you can see the triangle pointer, the larger pointer. This is a stacked symbol pointer. It has many symbols within one. It's got an X, which is an inbound. It's got a cross, which you mix an X with a cross. That's a very important area. It's got a triangle. At earlier parts of the day, it makes anything from an ocean-going fish to a five-pointed star, or two five-pointed stars. This area up here above this triangle pointer is two humps, or a heart shape. It actually comes down on both sides of this rock and makes a heart shape from the proper angle. And this small ridge of rocks here is a small intricate rock map that gives basic instructions that you can read with a telescope. This is the Catalina mountain range, incidentally. If you want to get deeper into this, this is right out of Chuck Kenworthy's book. This is a profile head, this is the nose, this is the eye socket, this is the mouth. It's kind of hard to read because now you're reading two different types of this system at once. You're reading rock and shadow together to make something. The rock makes the outline of the profile face, the shadow makes the outline of the mouth, and the nose is shadowed in at the top, which makes the outline of the eye socket. From a distance, this thing looks like a profile head. This is up close, and if you're at the wrong angle and the wrong distance, you're not going to pick this stuff up. It will not get picked up, and it'll mix in and makes it even harder to see. It can still be seen to some degree, but it's a lot harder. There's another photograph of the arrow markers. Now, if we zoom in on this photograph of the arrow markers, we can see a few more of the walkers. The walkers can be represented just by a torso, a pair of legs, a pair of feet, a couple of arms dangling out of nowhere, a profile of a man with an animal head or a cartoon type head or a elephant's head. But in this particular case, we can see what looks like could be a couple of legs or a man standing. That may even be a cactus that's separating it, but regardless, it makes an image. We can see the profile of a man standing sideways with the toes of his feet pointing downward. And over here, it kind of morphs into other things, but it's just an abstract. These are abstracts, nothing more, and that's how they were able to do this so intricately. Now this abstract over here looks like it's got 4 legs on it, and it could be an animal abstract. It probably is, and then next to it is a headless man, which would be an abstract, and it goes on. These are really poor examples, but the other ones couldn't be seen, so I'm moving on. In order to read this shadow language, you have to keep a fairly open mind. That's a drill rig. Oh, there's the stone maps. A nice copy of the stone maps. Get out of that right now. We're in my pictures here. We're going to show some of the sun signs that they created within the shadow. So I'm going to go to Hitler number 6. Now this is a priest campsite, witch, priest, whatever you want to call it. And this particular sun sign is a diffused light sign. It's created on a rock right next to another rock that's carved in the profile of a skull. The skulls were very important. I don't know if they're going to lead to a crystal skull or what, but they're very important. And when I first found this sign, and I took the very first photograph of it, this is the very first photograph of it. It's very hard to see these sun signs and these shadow signs, but they're in the map. They're in the map system. This is along a walker's trail, and this leads to the campsite that's guarded. It's guarded by a shield and monks, and these monks are basically made in the forms of human with the heads of praying mantises, prophets. Now over on this side of the rock we have some diffused light that's making a small happy face sunshine here. There's a smile and the 2 eyes and the rays coming off the sun. There's a throne, a chair, with a shadow figure sitting in the chair. Looks like a 5-pointed star made out of light above the shadow figure. And the shadow figure that's sitting in the chair, in the throne, is grasping what possibly could be his sword. And below that is the eye socket with the center to it, which is the crocodile's eye. You're in the realm of the crocodile, so you have to watch out. I'm backing out of this photograph. You can see it. It looks like you can see it pretty good. Now I'm zooming into the skull and the diffused light symbol. This was the first indication that I was onto some kind of a sign. It took 2 years to figure this out. It wasn't found by accident. I knew there was something there. I just didn't know what it was. I had to film it before I could figure it out. But basically what you see right here in this photograph is Roman numeral 75. There's a measuring stick or a pole ladder, whatever you want to call it, next to it to give you a little insight. And it's just forming in this window of light the number 75 in shadow on this ancient looking rock that's covered with various colors of lichen. And below the 7 is a pair of keys made out of lichen. And on down from the 5 here, there are various symbols and letters, and numbers and letters made out of shadow. And as we move along in this series of photos, you're going to see how it morphs into the sign that it eventually becomes. And then we're going to zoom in on that sign, and when we get zoomed in on that sign, you're going to be able to see the metamorphosis of this symbol as time progresses. They all morph into a more clear sign or symbol as they move along, but they may give other instructions as they move along. It's almost like a sentence in time. So we're going to move along on the photographs, and as you can see, we're a few photographs down. Now the sign is starting to focus better. It's starting to come more into view. The sun's getting further down in the sky or further across in the sky. The sun's deflecting off the rock, and this rock outcrop, it's hard to see, but I'm following the edge of this rock outcrop that's in front of this other rock outcrop that contains the symbol. This is the profile of a skull. This is the eye of the skull. This is the teeth and the mouth of the skull. It looks like it's wearing some kind of a moss as a beard, but this whole rock outcrop right here is the skull. The eye of the skull is looking at the numeral 75, and as you can see, we've got a letter F and a letter H starting to form, a numeral 7, a set of keys, a numeral 7 and 5, and a measuring stick. Now something's starting to form in the eye of the skull. This formation, or this symbol that's forming in the eye of the skull, is actually a small map. As we move along, we see the metamorphosis of the symbol. As time progresses, the symbol becomes more, how would you say, focused. The resolution becomes better. It becomes more aggressive and easy to read. Now we're going to zoom in on it again. Now you can clearly see, as I'm zooming in, the number 75 coming off the rock face. You can see the profile of the skull, well, at least I hope you can on this video. And there's the, basically the teeth of the skull are making the letter H. The eye of the skull has a triangular map, and behind the skull, on the rock outcrop behind the skull, is that Roman numeral 75 made out of shadow. The light deflecting off the rock. There's a measurement stick beside it, and you can vaguely see the letter H starting to form, and the letter 7, and below that the letter F. I believe they're using Bible gematria, numerals for numbers, or letters for numbers. And as we zoom in a little closer, we can see the keys, 75, the measuring stick, small cross, HF or FH7, right up the line there. It's probably pretty hard to see on the video, but there's an S and an E over here tied together. Superior East, I believe, is what that's saying. Now we're going to go all the way to the end of the series of photographs of the metamorphosis of the sign. At this temple, this is a light temple, this is a Templar light temple. We're going to zoom in on the sign and we're going to zoom in on the map. First we're going to see the sign. Now notice the sign. The light pattern is now making the shape, the vague shape of a heart. We've got the measuring symbol beside the light pattern. We've got the keys. We've got the number 75, the numeral 75. We've got the numeral 7. We've got what looks like an H. It's kind of going out of view now as the rest of the heart symbol comes into view. And then as we zoom in to this high resolution digital photograph, I don't know if you can see this or not. We have the letter H, we have the letter F, we have a line between, we have the Roman numeral 1. Above that we have the letter N as in Nancy, and then off to the side of that we have a 5-pointed star. This is the mini-map connected to the numeral. This is the mini-map that's given the keys to the entrance of this particular vault and or site. Now the skull is a death symbol. The light created heart with the numeral is on a vague representation of a witch's head or a warlock's head with its tongue sticking out, an eye, one of the eyes is a crocodile's eye, and it's got its mouth open and it's touching the symbol of a heart. Below that, the head of a horse. That you can't see because it's not visible in this photograph. But this is just an illustration of what's going on with this map system and this particular Templar light temple. This rock out face or this rock outcrop here represents a Janus. A Janus is a god with multiple heads, multiple faces, multiple directions. This Janus head has its teeth clenched together. It has an elongated eyeball that's coming down. There's the nose, the teeth. The eyeball's looking at this heart shape with a crack down the center of it. And there's actually multiple faces within this rock. Here's a face with an elongated nose. Kind of a square looking thing, almost cartoonish. Here's another profile of a face of a man's head. There's a face of what could be considered a dog's head or some kind of an animal's head coming out of it. But what this represents is Janus, the god Janus. It's just a multi-faced god. It's looking down on another profile face with an elongated nose that almost looks like a god head or a Christ head. Together this map is saying many different things. It's giving a sentence of things. Off in the background of the map we see a rotted animal's head. Off the side of the animal's head is a white quartz crescent moon that actually is a raised relief. Sticks out about that far and is about that big. Down below, the tongue is hanging out of the animal. The tongue is a very important key symbol within the system. So there you have it. That's the site of the temple. Now next we're going to go to what's called the, I would believe it would be called the Philosopher's Stone, Sorcerer's Stone. It's a key Janus stone. It's a key symbol. It's a key map symbol. It gives some of the rest of the system. It gives meaning to some of the rest of the system. The light temple or the solar temple that we're in right now. This is part of it. Now I call it the wizard. So let me see here. I think I might have the wizard already decoded here. I have to, before I get to the wizard though, I'd like to show you something else here. See if that shows up very good. This is a raised relief of a grail. The top of the grail cup is green. The pedestal, or basically the cup itself, the pedestal, which ironically has a couple of beads on it and a few notches that it comes down. There's the base. That's the grail. This is also at the site. This is a vague representation of green grail. Now this is the Janus stone, the philosopher's stone, the sorcerer's stone, the wizard stone, whatever you want to call it. This is a representation or a zoom in of the wizard stone. I did some outlining on this so that you can vaguely see where some of the stuff is, because this is a combination of a petroglyph and a carving, a raised relief, a recessed relief, and a shadow combination. There's a wizard's head or wizard's face. Now these images are stacked one on top of the other. The multiple representation of eyes, the multiple representation of heads, all relate to the god Janus. This particular one, it's got a wizard's, two eyes of a wizard. There's two eyes above the wizard that are peeking out of there. If you can zoom in on the photograph, which I can't do at this time because it's too grainy, but you can see that there is what I would call a couple of human eyes above that, kind of represented as a bird's head because of the eagle's head right here. There's the outline, there's the beak, there's the wing goes off that way. The eagle's head has a claw that makes a face, but these claws are coming down on the arm of the wizard that's hanging up in the air. There's another eagle's head right here with its wing made into the wing of the main eagle that's flying, and this eagle is basically sitting on the shoulder of the Janus, or up above the head of the two Januses. This is the wizard side of the Janus. This is the young crowned young king side of the Janus, I would imagine it would be called. The Janus is smiling on this side. One eye makes a five-pointed star, the other eye makes a crocodile's head with some solar symbols coming off of the crocodile's head, which stands for a solar sign. Above the crown, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points on the crown. Above the crown is a set of symbols laid out in a circular pattern, which represents, I believe, time, angle, distance. The young part of this Janus is looking at the numeral 75. 75 is repeated a few times. Down below that we have it's basically a duck or a goose wearing a billed hat, or a duck-billed hat. It's got some angry eyes on it there. It's got its head cocked sideways. Its wings have been clipped, and within the recess of one wing it has a compass symbol, and it has a Roman numeral 1 underneath that. It depends on the angle how you view it. Sometimes it comes out as a Roman numeral 1, sometimes it comes out as a numeral 75. Below that we have a representation of a square. Below that we have sideways the raised relief of the number Roman numeral 6, and that would be on the band of quartz that is running through this. Quartz symbolizing royalty, white magic. We have the letter A. The letter A is very important in their mapping system. It gives you a go-to symbol. It gives you a direction. or it tells you that there's something they want you to look at, or you're at a certain site. On the side of the sleeve of this wizard, this is the wizard's cape, basically, coming down, the shape of the cape. This is the side of the cape. This is the arm wrapped around the goose symbol or duck symbol. The legs of the goose are coming down here. On the side of the arm is the letters S and J, Society of Janus, I believe. And this little face that's drawn, it's actually made out of the claw of the eagle that's in flight. I mean, this is how they can stack various things within various signs and symbols. Now we'll go backwards again to show you what that stone looks like from a distance and kind of zoom in on that stone to let you get a look at some of the stuff within the stone. Pretty hard to see. This is the wizard with the various double Janet heads on it, the letter A. This is a vague representation of a knight on a horse with a knight behind it, and they have a bird's head. The crown of the bird's head is crowned with green, represents the green grail. And that's pretty much it. This stone here, as you make your way around it, morphs into what looks like a cat. I believe this might be a representation of Bastet, an Egyptian solar deity or god. Below that is the representation of a fist. It's, I believe that's a left-handed fist with the thumb laying. It's one of their symbols they use. And that's all of the Sun Temple. This is well, let's see, this is a horse. This is a sun symbol that they made. I found this early on. That's when I first discovered that they could make something so intricate. You could actually see the harness on the horse's head, the eyes of the horse, the ears, the harness as it comes down and attaches to the saddle. The saddle has various symbols on it, a heart, a Y, Janus symbols, some God symbols. There's a shadow dog's head built within the underneath between the legs of the horse. And it looks like an upside down 1 and the letter E or the numeral 3 made out of the dark edges or the dark parts of the shadow. And there's actually foam hanging off the nose of this horse from working so hard in the mine. This is a typical triangle sun sign. This is also at the Sun Temple. This is the numeral 75 off the earlier photos that we showed you. From the Sun Temple. Now, let me see. That's really about it. I do have some skulls to show you here. This is a vague representation of a skull. These are usually found at the mining sites. Oh boy, I gotta get a distant shot of that, huh? Otherwise we're not gonna get you something that you can actually see. Gotta do something with this quick. Can't do this forever. Okay, let's go to Shadow Trail. We don't need to go into Shadow Trails anymore. Let's see, Second City, Scully, Superstition Mountain. I think that Shadow Trail 1 might carry a photo of it in there. Okay, here we go. Alright, don't know if you can see this. It looks like it's coming through pretty good. Alright. This is the skull. This is the all-seeing eye. It's part of the skull. You can either look at the skull as having an eye and eye here. The skull can have mean eyes here. There's many different faces. There's the teeth of the skull. This is a representation of a mouth with the tongue sticking out. It's made out of quartz. It's got the letters A and H involved in it. This representation of a skull has its tongue sticking out, if you could call it that. It's more of a cyclops. There's various symbols on top of this skull, as well as a carved square on top of the skull. But these are found at the mine sites. These skulls are near the mine sites, or near the treasure sites. So they're a very important symbol. There's another look at the skull. They designate the skulls with a cedar tree, acacia tree. The acacia tree, I guess the cedar tree represents burial of the master. It represents burial in general. But they can and do actively manipulate the landscape as well as the plant life in order to accomplish what they're trying to say in this language. Next to the skull and down the waist, we have the representation down here of a tongue pointing back at the skull. These tongue representations were key symbols. They guided you to water, they guided you to various campsites as well as areas of importance. We'll go back a ways here and see what we got. This is just going around the skull as we make our way around it. We can see how it kind of morphs into nothing. Doesn't look like much. But this symbol that's between the two halves of this rock outcrop is an exclamation point, which is a symbol of death. It's a warning that you could basically find something that you don't want to find very quickly. Something that might hurt you. There's a distant look at the skull. It doesn't look like much. We can zoom in on it. It vaguely looks like a skull from this angle, but you can see the outcrop is not much, and this is what they could do with their outcrops. They could actually, they could carve something out of an outcrop or make something out of their process of mining that was only viewable from one angle and one direction as a profile, profila, that can only be viewed, that particular message can only be viewed from that angle or that direction or that distance. So this is a site that we will be working on this film, and there's already some key stuff that we're not going to go into that we've already discovered, and now we finally discovered the other key parts of it to put together to hopefully find the proper light machines. And basically we're going to be following with our hunt this hour, we're going to be following what's laid out in the stone maps are part of it. I mean, I use many different bits and pieces of information. This is just one of them. Where these stone maps came from, nobody really knows, but there's a dark image of it that will probably come up on the screen that you can actually see. There's a witch standing on an altar, has a cross. The numbers 1, 2, 3, number 4 and a heart down below. There's 2 crosses. This is basically representative of a ancient Catholic burial practice of separating the heart from the body and burying it in 4 places if this person happens to be a warlock or a person of otherworldly powers, a witch. There's a vague heart on this side, inside of a square. It basically says in broken Spanish and Portuguese, Esta Barada es Peligrosa, which is basically saying this 1 foot path is dangerous. Below that it says Yo voy 18 lugares, which is basically saying you go 18 places, or I am 18 places. Reference to the Bible possibly. Below that it says Busca el mapa. That's basically saying follow the map. And below that it says Busca el corazón. They misspelled corazón, which is basically heart. So it's saying follow the map, follow the heart. Altogether it says this 1 foot path, it is dangerous. You go, or I am 18 places. Follow the map, follow the heart. And on the pedestal the witch or priest is standing on, it has the what people have interpreted as being the date 1847. I believe it's just a abstract reference, or a reference to the various numbers within that. 1847. 47 of course is the double of 23.5, which is your basically solar, your solstices, your summer and winter seasons of the solar. And the 18 references up here to the number 18 in the text. That's the second sentence that says I am 18 places. The witch is wearing a hat, which also makes the letter A. And the witch has a cross on its sleeve that comes down, and its hand with its thumb is pointing outward as it holds the cross, the thick cross, and points at a crescent sign, and the sign below that, which is a solar sign. That's lunar and solar. And then it goes through the coffin that's been laid to rest, comes down to a lunar and solar sign, and goes into the heart. And the heart says number 4. Now the last symbol before the heart is the solar symbol. So we're hoping that that's what we're going to be looking for here, is the solar sign at this site. And that's the stone maps. Now on the other side of the stone maps they have the horse map, which I don't know if I've got a picture of that horse map or not. I have to look along here and see. There it is. Okay, that's kind of hard to see, but it's a little fuzzy. It's got a horse. The horse symbol, it says El Caballo de Santa Fe, the horse from Santa Fe. You pasto el norte del rio, you pasture to the north of the river. It's got the numeral 3, or a bird sign. It's got an E. It has a 3 or a bird sign on the side of the horse and a crescent sign. It's got a dot right there. This back half of the horse comes down and makes a elephant's trunk. The elephant's one of the more powerful symbols they used. So you have an elephant symbol coming off the back of the horse. And then you have a half heart symbol that's cut off on the butt of the horse. And then over here you have a cross laid out on a hillside overlooking what may be Rio, because it has either R10 or Rio written right here. And then it has a sun sign, a Godhead sign, the numeral 5, and then 5 dots out across what looks like the Rio to the north of the Rio. It's got another sun sign above the horse's head, and the horse's head, the horse's nose only has 1 nostril. So that's basically the horse map on the back side of the priest and witch map. So with that, I'm going to turn this film off, and the next film we're going to go out and actually do some hunting in the field and kind of give everybody a feel for what it's like out there.